Hi, my name is Dr. Joe Childs, and on this DVD today we're going to talk about attention deficits, ADHD, and hyperactivity. Let me start off by saying that the vast majority of kids that we've treated in our practice with these types of problems have either A, gotten off the medication if they've already were on the medication when they came into our office, or B, never had to go on the medication in the first place. And the reason why we've had such incredible success treating these types of kids is because we use brain-based hemispheric integration therapy. And that's what we're going to talk about today so you can understand what your treatment options are. You see, it's not my job to take your child off the medication or put your child on the medication. However, what I have found is most parents with children with these types of problems don't want their kids on the medication in the first place. But the trouble is most parents have no other alternative. They think there's no other options out there. They think that the medications are the only thing that they can do. And we're going to talk about something that you can do, a natural solution to these problems on this DVD. But again, most parents really don't want their kids on the medication. And the reason why is that they don't like the side effects. They're a little afraid about putting their child on a stimulant, or they're afraid about the different side effects that occur, the weight loss, the insomnia, and the list goes on and on with these types of problems. So we're going to talk about a drug-free alternative to the medications today. Now, before we get talking about ADD and ADHD, I want to go over one of the big points. And that big point is to any of the parents that are listening, or anybody that's listening for that matter, we've got to be very careful about the labels that we put on a child, because a child is either going to live up to the label or a child's going to live down to the label. So in our office, we're not real concerned about the label that the child comes in with, whether it be ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, autism, whatever they come in with. We're not so concerned about that. We're not so concerned about the diagnosis. Now, of course we're going to take it into account, but really the diagnosis doesn't really tell us that much. Our treatment philosophy is to treat the whole child, treat the individual, not just the diagnosis. Now, why would we have that? Because so many people are misdiagnosed, from anywhere from ADD, ADHD, to even cancer for that matter. And the diagnosis of ADHD really doesn't tell us what we need to do about it. I'll give you an example. We had a child who was about 10 years old. We've had a lot of kids this age, but one I can really think of just recently came in. The mother said, my child was diagnosed with ADHD back when he was 4. So he's had the problem for 6 years, and for the last 6 years they've had him on all the different medications. They've tried every one, the Strateras, the Ritalins, the Concertas, you name it. And he comes into the office, and I think he's taking 1 or 2 medications at that point. But the interesting thing is the child's had the problem for 6 years. And he was diagnosed back in when he was 4 years old, and he's still diagnosed with ADHD. And the problem is the medications are only treating the symptoms. They're not really looking for the true cause of the problem. The kid's not on the medication, the kid's got all the symptoms. The kid's on the medication, the symptoms feel better for the time being, but they only work while the child's on the medication. Again, it's not looking at the root cause. So let's say a child comes in with a diagnosis of ADD, ADHD. It really doesn't tell us very much. I mean, it gives us a starting point, but it really doesn't tell us what we need to do about it. We need to keep on digging. We need to be more functional. We need to look at the child's neurology. We need to look at the individual's brain and nervous system, because we need to find out what parts of the brain are working, what parts of the brain are not working very well. Because there are parts of the brain, when they're working properly, cause you to be not hyperactive, cause you to be not distractible, cause your child to be able to focus better in school, to not be compulsive. When these areas are not working well, that's when you start developing some of these problems. Now, what about my qualifications? Well, in terms of my qualifications, I'm a doctor of chiropractic, but I'm also a chiropractic neurologist, one of only about 1,200 chiropractic neurologists in the world. Now, what is a chiropractic neurologist? Well, a chiropractic neurologist is very similar to maybe a medical neurologist. In medicine, you have general physicians, just like in chiropractic, you've got general chiropractors, but then you also have medical neurologists, medical doctors that specialize in neurology. Well, in chiropractic, you have the same thing. You have board-certified chiropractic neurologists. It takes more time to become a chiropractic neurologist, to specialize. Now, the difference is a chiropractic neurologist treats the brain and nervous system without the use of drugs and surgery, where a medical neurologist uses medications in its way in treatment. So again, I'm a chiropractic neurologist. I'm also highly trained in functional nutrition. So we use a lot of nutrition, especially in these types of cases when they come into the office. I'm also a certified interactive metronome practitioner. Now, the interactive metronome, we're going to talk about this on this DVD. It's a computer-based program that we use for our kids that come in with these types of problems. I'm also an exercise physiologist. My undergraduate work is in exercise physiology. Exercise is key for patients with ADHD. And I'm also certified in spinal biomechanics, which means that we look at the biomechanics and structure in the spine. So basically, this is what we do. We treat a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers in our office, and I believe that we're the only practice. In fact, I know we're the only practice in Chester County that combines all of these things under one roof. The functional neurology, the chiropractic, the interactive metronome, in treating these types of conditions. In fact, we want to leave no stone unturned in treating your child. So this is basically what we do. One of the things that make us different in our practice is we treat these problems, the ADD, the ADHD, as neurological issues. Now, the majority of practitioners out there treat them as behavioral issues or psychological issues, and that really doesn't do these issues justice, because most of the research that's out there states that these problems are neurological. They come from different parts of the brain. They come from the frontal lobes. They come from the parietal lobes in the brain. They come from the cerebellum. They come from the upper brainstem. They come from the basal ganglia. So we need to look at all these areas in determining why your child has the problems. Again, we need to be functional. Okay, if those areas are not functioning well, that's when you start developing these problems. So the reason why our program is so successful is we combine all these things. We combine functional neurology. We look at your child's neurology. We look at your child's physiology. We look at them nutritionally, metabolically. We look at them. We look at their neurotransmitters. We look at them and see how well their balance is. And we look at all these things in treating these conditions. Again, we do our treatments drug-free. Now, what I'd like to do now, before we get talking about more in depth about ADD and ADHD, is I'd like to have you watch a testimonial. It's a story of Sean. He's a teenager that was not doing very good in school, and now he started doing a lot better in school, and his mom, Katrina, is going to tell the story. So here we go.
Hi, Katrina. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Well, Katrina, can you tell me what kind of complaints you had prior to coming to the office?
Well, my 16-year-old son, had been struggling in school for years. So he had not been formally diagnosed with ADHD, but all indications were that he had a focusing problem.
And how long had that been?
He has struggled in school from elementary school on up.
And how has it affected his life?
Very frustrating for him. I think he lost all confidence in himself that he was ever able to succeed. He was on medication and is in 10th grade now, and it's been a struggle since 4th grade.